Hey YouTube, this is a response video to Claire's anti-feminism video.
I saw this thing on Tumblr today that I felt deserved a response. It was this anti-feminist video. Apparently this whole anti-feminist thing, you know, it's a counterculture to the super liberal feminist, culture. And countercultures are great. They are. But when your counterculture advocates for going back to a time when women had no say in anything, when women were literally property, there's something wrong.
I hate to sound pedantic, but anti-feminism is really not a counterculture. It's nothing like punk or hippies. There's no way to, play music or dance or, do your hair or dress as anti-feminist. Anti-feminism is really more intellectual. It's just about ideas and knowledge and beliefs and attitudes. Anti-feminism is also not reactionary. Anti-feminists, generally speaking, don't want to go back in time. They don't want to get a time machine and rewind history to a better place or a better time. Really, it's just opposition to an ideology, namely feminism, which unfortunately many people don't agree on what it means, what this term feminism signifies or what it represents. So, depending on your interpretation of what feminism means, feminism can mean a lot of things. Given how broad the definition of feminism is, anti-feminism is going to be at least as broad. Right? So, it's unfortunate that we have to talk about a silly word, like a label, like feminism, rather than the actual issues that matter. But I think that I have some familiarity with anti-feminism in general. And I think I can generalize about anti-feminism pretty well.
Up until very recently, as far as history goes, women were property. Women were lesser than men. And the reason women weren't part of the clergy, there was a reason. Not the reason you cited, though. The reason is because women were property. Women were lesser. Women couldn't be human.
So Claire, you say that women used to be property, and they used to be treated as inferior, or viewed as inferior. I don't know what you mean by that. Are you trying to compare it to slavery? Are you saying that women were enslaved? Are you saying they were traded? What do you mean by property? Men and women can't own each other. Do your children not belong to you? Are they not your... Do you not have children? Do you not have parents? Do they not belong to you? Friends, relatives? Does your boyfriend or girlfriend not belong to you? What do you mean by property? Because if you're actually talking about slavery, no, there was no female slave trade. Really, women were never kept as slaves. That's just a metaphor, really. When you say women were treated as less, you're obviously generalizing. You're saying women were thought of as inferior. But you don't really say what you mean. You might give a few examples of, how people didn't think women were capable of everything that we know they're capable of today. But how much of that is really inferiority and how much of it is just differences in ability and skills? I don't really know what you're talking about. You're using these really abstract terms, which I don't know what you're basing this on, basically.
Women are brutalized for being women. And it's wrong.
You said that women are brutalized for being women. There's no way that's true. Just having a pair of testicles means that you're more likely to be the victim of a violent crime, or experience violence, or, be killed, be severely injured. No matter how you measure violence against people, men are suffering from the majority of violence. Right? They're absorbing violence in general, more than women are. So I don't know how you can say that women are brutalized for being women. It sounds to me like simply being a man means you're more likely to be exposed to violence. So please, tell me, how do you get this idea? What does it take to convince you that women are actually being exposed to violence just because they're women?
So, basically, in the end, our current social paradigm is the way it is because our current social paradigm is the counterculture to this anti-woman idea that was predominant in society for so long, and it is still predominant.
You also say that the current social paradigm is just a reaction to misogyny. I don't know what you mean by the current social paradigm. If you're talking about feminism, the way I look at it, feminism is actually just sexism. It's promoting and perpetuating this idea that women are uniquely victims, that they're being oppressed, or they're uniquely vulnerable, that they're a vulnerable group in society, that they're more exposed to violence, they're more exposed to everything that people don't want in their life. And basically, that society treats women worse than men, and that women deserve better. That seems to be the feminist paradigm, right? So, the feminist paradigm really does treat women as victims. Even though feminists claim to oppose sexism, or double standards, or hypocrisy, they usually just, use sexism, supposedly with their ultimate aim of fighting against sexism, but really, they never get around to that. They just use sexism to get more funding, or to get more attention, or to hurt men, basically, to try to ruin men's lives, sabotage them, make accusations. It's just the idea that women are weaker, the weaker sex, that they're less to blame, less accountable, less responsible, that they're inherently victims, that they're more victimized. These are the ideas that you hear more from feminists. That's why I count myself as an anti-feminist.
How dare you assume that men have an obligation to pay for you? Is it really that difficult? Like, you don't want to be taken out anywhere nice if you have to go Dutch? Really? Really? The only person there for you is you. And so if you take power away from yourself, you can't even help yourself. As a woman, I want to benefit society, not even as a woman, as a human fucking being. I want to benefit society, alright? I want to make a change for the better. In the interest of basic human rights, please understand that feminism needs to happen. So long as there's an idea that women are lesser, there's something wrong. There's something deeply and inherently wrong, okay, with society. And we need to be equal as humans. There is fundamentally no difference between women, between men. We all are almost genetically identical. We are the same. People are equal. People need to have an equal amount of power, an equal amount of opportunities. Okay? We need to treat people as people. Okay? Not as women and not as men. Okay? As people.
So you think that men and women are exactly the same. I agree that men and women should be treated the same, but they're not the same. You have to acknowledge that there's differences. There's differences that are rooted in biology between men and women. And if you want men and women to reach their full potential, you have to take these into consideration. You can't just say, you can't just avoid reality. Men and women are not the same. What is really needed is equality of standards. You have the same standard for everyone, whether they're man or woman. It shouldn't matter, right? But if you want to explain why men tend to end up in one place and women tend to end up in another, sometimes the fact that they have these inherent differences is a good part of the explanation. It doesn't you can't attribute all of it to socialization. Anti-feminism is not really a set of values, unless you think truth, honesty, and freedom are values. I guess you could say, maybe attribute that to anti-feminism. Anti-feminists generally are not afraid to speak the truth to power. And they're not afraid. They want people to be free to make their own decisions, generally speaking. And I am generalizing, obviously. Not everyone since people already have different ideas of what feminism means, obviously there's lots of different types of people who call themselves anti-feminists. But generally speaking, I find that anti-feminists are pro-freedom and pro-truth, regardless of how politically correct the truth might be. Feminism works with sexism in this day and age. It works with what you might consider to be misogyny. It takes the idea that women are weak and vulnerable and not responsible for anything they do, and it runs with that, and it uses it against men, and it uses it against everybody. It uses it to create these bureaucracies and these structures which take away people's freedom at the end of the day. If you take a look at where feminism has become established and dominant, it's areas such as government, the education system, and business and non-profit or charitable causes and NGOs. The resistance to that is taking place mostly on the areas which are just new and growing, the internet, right? The internet is really the home of anti-feminism. Because that's where anti-feminism can thrive, whereas it can't thrive in the government or education system. Just because feminism is so established. I would liken anti-feminism to anti-theism, because I see feminism as a religion. It's giving people answers to questions which are fake, basically. A lot of it is pseudoscience. I don't know who this anti-feminist woman is that you're responding to. You didn't provide a link. I asked you for a link, and you said you were getting on that, but you didn't provide a link. So really, I don't know who this person is. From what you're saying, it sounds like she's basically considers herself to be an anti-feminist because she wants men to pay for her dinner, and she wants to be taken care of, and she wants to be a housewife. That's not typical of anti-feminist ideas. She's just one person. I wouldn't generalize from her. Really, what anti-feminism is it's the absence of feminist censorship, feminist hysteria, and feminist lies. That's what it is. And it's a reaction to it. It's saying, hey, look, this thing that feminists are saying, it's not true. And being allowed to say it, because we have freedom on the internet.